I mean, the show presented itself very forward with all of its themes that it was going to dive into, but these four set episodes, man, it really just kind of like, it's like, have you had enough yet? And I'm like, I'm being waterboarded.
Hi, hello, this is Jules the Human here, and welcome to the Jules the Anime Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Jules the Human, and every week we go out into the world and watch a little bit of anime, and then we come back here and talk about it. And today we are talking about NIER Automata version 1.1A, the anime version of the very popular video game. So we're going to be talking about this anime episode 5 through 8, and once it is done, once we're finished next week, because next week will be the last time we talk about it, we'll pick a brand new anime, one of these new anime here, minus NIER, of course, but all of these anime are up for grabs to be picked from our chest, and something that we're going to enjoy for the following 3 weeks.
And then we're also going to be rating it.
Woo! We're going to be ranking. This is the old season 2 ranking system, so you know where we put everything. But NIER Automata is going to be going on a brand new board. We'll see where it goes. And I don't only decide where it goes, I am always joined by Matt Galley. Matt, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing really well. As we record this on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Got all the it's just so funny to me where I talked about, I mean, the show presented itself very forward with all of its themes that it was going to dive into, but these four set episodes, man, it really just kind of like starts to it's like, have you had enough yet? And I'm like, I'm being waterboarded.
There was some moments, like there's some sentences that characters say and there's like a little pause, but I'm like, there should be a bigger pause here. Like they just say something kind of profound or make you kind of think, and then they're like, okay, on to the next.
And
I'm
moving
like,
on.
Wait. We
Next
can
thing.
explore this. Yeah.
But I continue to enjoy this show as it's just, it's really pretty to look at. It's got enough going on episode to episode where, like, at this point, like I'm at a point where I'm just like, I don't even know what the show is going to throw at me next with how it's kind of handling the way it delivers the narrative.
And I do gotta say, I did play the game for quite a while. Matt said he played the game as well, but the part that he got up to has been passed, and now finally at episode 8 is where, like, after episode 8, I think I'm like, okay, brand new territory, don't know what's happening, because even after, like, I was like, okay, that's the end of how much I know, and then episode 8 was like, wait, I remember this part too, never mind. So let's get into it. Episode 5, Maverick, with the R being the cap. I don't know if it matters. Whatever. What happens in episode 5?
2B and 9S do a supply run for the Resistance as a favor. Wandering through a shopping center en route, they find themselves greeted by Pascal, the leader of a group of machine life forms that live in peace. 9S remains skeptical of their nature, Pascal inviting them to explore the camp and come to their own conclusions. They find what seems like a giant head inside of a tree at the base of the village, and Pascal explains how it was this head that unlocked the potential in them to become self-aware as they felt emotion afterwards. Now thankful for the village they have. 9S and 2B reflect on the similarities to Pascal's story, and 2B marks the location as she wishes to return once their mission is complete. They return to the village to discover the machine life forms are capable of disputes, even though they are disconnected from the machine life form network, and Adam and Eve are shown being cheeky little guys.
So we see them quite often.
Evolving.
They're evolving. We see them at this table a few times, and that's how it sort of starts off in episode 5 as well. Just a little bit. We see Adam and Eve. Adam seems to be more the intellectual type, or the one that has the brains. The other, Eve, who came from Adam, is the one that just wants to play and have a good time and just vibe. So there we see a lot of them in these 4 episodes, not doing a whole lot, but they're there.
They show up quite a few times.
Yeah, but the main story is 9S and 2B running errands for the Resistance. They're in the shopping center. 9S is showing some signs of like human-esque emotions, like often, which is kind of weird. Where even though he's like, I don't know, he's supposed to be this Yorha, but he wants peace, he wants happiness for himself. But we see a lot of human-esque qualities in him that he continues to exude.
Hmm. Hmm.
In the actual place that we find them, there are a bunch of robots with green and yellow eyes, as we've seen before. They didn't have to tell us. I like that they don't have to tell us these things. It's just like you saw before, red eyes, bad, yellow, green, okay. They're fine. They seem to be docile or at least something.
Hmm.
We meet Pascal, who's the robot, and they have no animosity. The resistance has a barter system with this crew or this village, and Lily has been good to the robots. We find out the sanctuary has been taken off of this machine life form network. They find the robot head in the tree. Here's the first like thing that's like, wait a minute, what's happening?
Yeah, what's going on?
Um,
What's going on?
so they say that this was originally something that humans made as a weapon, and you saw like a little centipede sort of type thing. They don't give us enough time to like think. I want like, what do you mean? Like this was a human weapon that they think, but like, was this to make the robots turn good or to turn on our side? Was it humans trying to get back the robots that went bad on them for somehow, like this virus that we've seen? Like, what are your thoughts on this thing in the tree?
I
Like,
I wish I had any like
which I
just
had thoughts.
come to me because 9S tries to hack it, and as he
Yeah.
does, we get all those flashes of all these different people, and I thought like for a little bit it was kind of doing a whole like it was just a lot of imagery without any humans or anything like that, but then they started showing actual faces and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like noted, it's for some reason we have memories of people within these data banks, and then in the next episode the likenesses of the Yorha squad, that number two and the rest of them in Lily's flashback, they all bared a striking resemblance to the
Mhm.
people that were shown in this head's databank. So there's just like you said, it's the story is kind of like pulling itself apart, or not pulling itself apart, but it feels like it's getting rolled out like a dough being made into like a pizza crust, so to
But
speak.
not fast enough for me. It's not fast. Like, okay, well, the first thought that I had was like something a little further than that was like, is his head showing him the future? Because like we didn't have or I didn't have that information that in the past there were different kinds of 2B or Yorha units in the past. So I was like, is this the future at first? I was like, what is it? Because we see a bunch of new characters, people that we haven't seen before, faces and all this stuff. So I was like, what is this? Um, but more than likely, it is just memories that this thing had of fights in the past, or I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just so odd, and it has this ability to change. And Pascal was the first one that got changed. Well, I don't know if he was the first one.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's Pascal's the first one that came back to create a community there, but who knows how many other times, or like what is the range capability on this thing? Is it there's
It's in a
more
tree. Does that
questions.
Yeah, does that matter? Like, if it's in the tree, is it going in the roots? Like, whatever ability or something? Like, is it just into and then out of the flowers? Because we saw good write that down, write that down. We saw good robots turn when they were, like, looking at the flowers. Is That's probably a big stretch. I don't know.
Maybe like I don't
It
it,
could
it could be a stretch, but
it could be
like
anything.
it's at least a connecting thread,
Yeah.
where it seems like the show kind of keeps coming back to these concepts about like like the nature of things are evolutionary, like almost into evolutionary theory, where it's just like all things are going to kind of grow and mutate into what it needs to be or do in order to exist in the environment that it's given. Or Darwin's theory, not Darwin's theory, but Darwinism in the way of like, anything else that can't survive is just gonna be lost to the timeline. Um, so it's just it along those lines, the head makes me question whether or not the machine life forms are like a completely inorganic, or if there's some sort of like you said, like it's all like rooted and connected together. We go on to see the whole idea of these servers connecting all of these robots together and making them move and do the things that they're doing. But does that mean that Pascal and all these other robots exist like on like serverless, so to speak? Like, are they their own units, or are they, now that they're in a community, are they like playing into some sort of connected hive mind at that rate?
Yeah, like how do you exist without the server? And if you are a robot off of the server, how far away are you from being a human or being an individual? Because in this village, we do see a lot of people, or a lot of robots actually, that are very individualized, that are very their own being, and have, based on what they either read or based on like the other I keep wanting to say people, the other robots that they meet, they have their own connections, because like we're hearing in this one as well, it's like sister, brother, father, or something like that. They're throwing those words around, and it's like, how far, like I think it's meant to be like, how far can we blur the line between human and robots? But you are clearly seeing a robot here. We still have the robot voice to take you out, to give you that uncanny valley stuff. We have the robot face that is looking directly at you, but very human characteristics. And
But
it's
at the
like,
same time, you
ugh.
have the Yorha units and the androids operating right alongside, which, for all intensive purposes, are the same thing at a like at a fundamental level, outside of the fact that they look like humans. That is basically their only distinguishing factor. That like you can kind of root out at this point if they're able to act with autonomy, feel emotions. It gets into it later with 9S and Pascal bickering, like, how much of the units, why am I forgetting their name? Oh my god, the machine
The
life
resistant,
forms, like
yeah.
how many parts can you replace until you're like something entirely different? Which
Oh,
gets into that question, how many pieces of a ship can you repair before you've replaced all the boards? Is it the
it's a
same ship?
brand new ship, yeah. I think
Um
that's in the next episode maybe. But yeah, I love that. Because yeah, they
it gets into all that here for sure.
what are we what are we doing? What do we do? Like, what is it? Like, I don't know. I'm stuck between a couple of different things and theories. Like, is it that these robots eventually grow up, quote unquote, into being these Yorha robots that are usable by the moon people, the humans that we never see? Um, or was it like a failed thing that happened and there's some virus that they're trying to hold on Earth? I don't know, man. I don't know. Um,
There's a head in a tree.
yeah, the head in the tree, the robot head talked and said live to Pascal. Pascal felt fear of dying there. He kept on fighting, but then eventually he did change to want to make a village there. Ninus thinks the robots are selfish, which is very funny because he was just talking about how sort of selfish he was in the beginning of this episode. He was like, I just want to be happy. I want to do these things. And it's like, you robots are selfish. And 9S can't see past his fucking brain or whatever's there. Um,
The the hypocriticisms
yeah,
are real.
yeah, it's great. Love 9S. Big fan. No. The robot kids are fighting over the music box. They are very human in this. And 9S is just sort of taking it as like, they're volatile. What are you doing? You're letting them fight. They still have it left inside them. But
Like
2B,
I feel like he identifies it as like they aren't like violent, but they can still disagree with each other. And I think that's something that continues to play into this whole realization arc for him, that like, oh, maybe the enemy that I've been pitted against isn't what I've actually been led on to think about them, and maybe there is more to this than is on the surface.
mhm.
I think at least that's like kind of, because like it cuts into the operators checking in on them, and I think it's like at that moment he could have been like, yeah, we found a village with machine
That's
life
true.
forms, and like ratted them out for all intents and purposes. But like he was like, nope, nothing to report, because he kind of, I think he realizes that like it's not that it's right, but like again, everything else that I led up to that with, just
I
the whole
also think he
idea that like,
doesn't want to tip the status quo with the resistance having that connection with them a whole lot. Like he doesn't agree with it, I think at first, but he does know that the resistance has this connection with them and they have this barter system that's happening. So I think he's like doesn't want to ruin this whole thing. Like if he says
that could be a part
something,
of it too.
ruins the whole thing. So
Hmm.
I don't I don't know if he sees it as much. Like I don't know if
It's
he
hard to
sees.
tell. It's hard to tell with him, especially, and the
Yeah,
Yorha units, when they wear these fucking blindfolds.
that's
I
true.
can never, outside of what they're saying, we don't really get a full reaction from them, like physically,
Maybe that's
because
on purpose
eyes are
too.
a very, telling thing.
Is everything just like on purpose? Like was this all just like trying to make everything hard to distinguish what's human, what's not, except for the blatants
Yeah,
of really pretty people,
yeah.
really ugly little robots. They're all sort of acting the same way, but they're not able to see the robot's emotion on their face, not able to see the Yorha's emotion on their face. Like this all feels intentional.
Intentional from like a narrative standpoint, or
Yes,
like,
yes.
okay, okay.
Like they
Yeah,
did this on purpose to hide and mask
yeah. I
and make
mean,
them feel what we're feeling.
even the first when we finally get that flashback of the empire that had been, oh, that happens later on, sorry, we'll talk about that later then
Okay.
too, my bad.
Near Automata, episode 6, Lone Wolf. What happens in episode 6?
Lily shares her past with 2B as we are shown the history of her old squad meeting an early Yorha unit, one of them resembling 2B closely as they were created from the same model. The number 2 unit is able to convince the groups to join for the sake of their mission, but does not share classified intel, drawing some skepticism from the resistance. As the group stops to grab water, Lily is infected with the virus, and Rose, the commander of the unit, moves to take Lily out before the infection can take hold. But number 2 intervenes, and with the help of the Yorha units, they're able to remove the virus from Lily. The mission quickly grows grim as numbers quickly dwindle into the rest of the mission. Rose is forced to send Lily back as they destroy the enemy's server, and Lily is left as seemingly the only survivor. Uh, Lily goes on to ask 2B about what memories she may have.
This episode was so insane.
It was
Like
crazy. It was a
I did
roller
not
coaster episode.
in the game. I You don't get this, and I don't even think you meet well, you do meet Lily, but I don't know if you get this later on, and they're just narratively putting this in now so that you have more care for Lily or whatever. I didn't know this, and this was really cool. Lily having the whole battle flashback of where we see um the resistance sort of rescuing these new Yorha models that shows Lily in there as younger, And I do have a question. Did me and Caitlin couldn't figure it out? Was Lily? We've seen her in our time now, right? That's her as now. Was she shorter when she was in the past? Like, did she grow up,
It
or
was really hard to tell.
it's
Again,
very
'cause
hard
I
to
think
tell?
Rose was just depicted as very tall.
Okay, okay.
Like I think that's all it was, but it's a good question actually. It's
Because
hard to tell.
I mean, in the end, Lily does end up surviving, and we have this time, and she's usually just set by herself. But like, she's the oldest model that we know of right now. Like, she's the oldest, and we can kind of infer that models grow hair, maybe.
Mhm.
So, do they grow taller? Like, how? Where does the
Where does the line get
robotisms?
drawn? Yeah.
Yeah, like, did she actually age as a human would?
She definitely seems to be wiser and more, aware and present.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think she like physically grew,
Okay.
but at least with the other example of like a big skip in time, basically the same amount of time. The 2S model,
The uh-huh.
2S,
Which one? The twins?
the number two model. Sorry, the one that
Okay.
the 2B lookalike from the flashback. In the next episode, we get reintroduced to them, and they don't seem to have like physically grown, but again, their hair is grown much longer.
Yeah, and we're supposed to believe, and it's heavily implied and said that this is the old 2B model that Lily was with during this whole
Yes,
flashback thing. But now it's A2, or yeah, A2 is now her new name. But in this episode, we get Rose as the resistance leader, story from the past, trying to break this machine server, how it's the Yorha's mission, or it's I think it's the Yorha's mission. Their resistance are gonna do it together. One thing I did notice, also I have to ask, are you watching in English or in Japanese?
in Japanese.
Okay. I'm watching in English, and it's not bad. It's pretty good.
I figured it might be pretty good because I remember the voice acting in the game being really good. So I was
Yeah.
like, if they even get half the voice actors back, I'm sure they can do something good and uh
But
something impressive with that in English, because I played the game in English and I think it
yeah,
prompts you for a language in that game.
in the flashbacks, the previous 2B model had a very different English voice. So you can very distinctly that this was a different person. Did you notice that in Japanese?
Sounds like the same person in my
The
opinion.
same person.
Actually, there's a much more like upbeatness to her voice, where she doesn't sound as like cold and stoic as
Okay.
2B actually. Like but it's for me, I'm just like it's the same voice actor doing
Huh.
a change in tone of voice, but like it could have been somebody different, and just because it's a different language, I'm not able to pick up on
Sure.
that as quickly.
If it was in English,
Yeah.
you would be like, "Oh, that's a different thing."
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the older 2B sounded like a Genshin Impact character. Like, she was just like super high, very different. And I was like, "Oh, this is a okay, now there's no question here. We're looking at the same character, but this is a different version of her." So it was
Yeah.
like something that very distinct in the English version. They have a lot of friendly camaraderie in this little area, in these little flashbacks. They're hanging out, they're vibing, they're racing, doing whatever.
Those two that were racing each other, they literally share the same brain cell.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
love that
Love that.
dynamic. It's like at the
Get you
same
a
time, the huh?
yeah, get you a friend that'll race you for water
For buckets of water.
just because. Past Lily gets the logic virus, has red eyes, and she's infected. The 2B model was trying to protect her from Rose. So we see that these Yorha models, these older first edition maybe Yorha models, have a lot of human aspects, maybe a little bit more human aspects, or you could also see it as not being as battle hardened maybe as the resistance, because I think Rose, I mean, the past 2B model was like, this is your family, this is, you're not supposed to do this,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
think Rose understood that,
yeah.
but you got
Definitely
to think
understood
about,
it, but it's like in the moment, yeah, in the grand scheme, and even they're talking about like this is protocol, this is how we do things, it's how we've always done things, so it's what needs to be done. I totally understand why Rose did what they did.
yeah,
It's like, it draw it in comparison to like a zombie movie where it's like,
yep,
you see somebody you really care about get bitten, and you don't want them to have to go through all of that. And even though it hurts you as much as you do, doing what she tried to do would be for the best in that scenario. And they spoke out like there's no curing the virus, but apparently these Yorha units had like they were apprehensive to kind of reveal the fact that they could do it. And then when they did it, it was like, all right, we have to go for it. So I think it's like another case of like to be said, that's classified intel. We can't talk about it. I think them being capable of doing that is probably something that's supposed to be classified, and they probably broke some rule or regulation doing
yep,
that.
yep, because
Like
Lily
you
gets
should only
reprogrammed.
do it if one of person in your unit, another your high unit, gets infected. Do you use this? And no situation do you use it outside of that.
And that would come from command, but like,
Exactly.
why is command doing that? Like, why wouldn't they give everybody?
We have to make decisions with perspective.
Yeah, like, why wouldn't they give that ability to everybody? Like, that's stupid. Like, well, I don't know their big plan, so who knows? Maybe they're trying to get rid of the resistance as
Perspective.
well. I don't know.
Perspective.
Perspective. Um,
Anyways,
Lily gets reprogrammed and saved by the Yorha units, and they have to go up against 300,000 robots. And we see them desperately calling to command. The commander did not want to send reinforcements. They don't care. They're just like, nope,
like,
do it.
please connect me to the commander. And they're like, these orders are coming directly from the commander. You are to go in with the unit you have.
What do you think that is?
That's like they're androids. We're gonna use them, and they're gonna fulfill their purpose, and they're gonna go in there. And if we lose four of them because they went in, as long as they destroy the server, that's all that really matters. If only one of them comes out of that situation, if none of them come out of that situation, all we need is for them to destroy the server. They're models that we have on a production line, and we're just gonna ship out another four troops the second that their connections go offline.
But I see that definitely, but we don't see them making more models.
No.
We don't see them supplying more for the resistance down there on Earth. All the resistance people that we've talked to is that like they're heavily understaffed. They don't have people, they don't have bodies, they don't have supplies. So it's like,
Oh, do you mean
can't
why would the resistance go through with that?
no. Why would we don't have information. We can assume that the command post in space is making a ton of models, but all the info that we know, that doesn't say that. It doesn't say that they're making a lot of models. Like, well, I mean, maybe, but
Then conversely, you could say that that their situation is actually so desperate that they're willing to send the four models that they had available in on a suicide mission, because if they don't destroy that server, they might lose anything connected to the Pacific Ocean.
like this is the best they have. Like this is
Yeah.
all we got. Is
Yeah.
like you got to destroy this.
Suicide Squad style.
Yeah, pretty much, because yeah, we don't have those reinforcements. I don't know. It's all really
Could
up in
have
the
could have
air.
given them a different briefing, yeah. And then the second they touch down, it's like, yeah, no, sorry, actually, we're not. There's no meetup. There's no second crew. You need to fulfill the orders you're given, and that's it. And that's kind of like what it seems like as they're trying to calm back to command. But like obviously, Commander White, I think her name is or something.
Mhm.
She like is baring her teeth as this is happening, obviously much at this time much less like hardened by
It,
all the decisions that she's had to impose on people, probably not even make herself. It's
yeah,
just her receiving orders to give orders. And that's something that 9S kind of finds out, as we'll talk about.
half of it does feel like the commander is just the manager, and the higher up district manager or higher up operator is not there on the day-to-day basis, and they're like, you got to cut costs, and they're like, we need a new broom for the place, and they're like, you know what I mean? It's like the same
Yeah.
situation. It's like, we got, well, what about like a pizza day for the people, and they're like, no, we need money.
Maybe the
Go make
bunker
us money.
is actually just the aliens. And maybe they're just doing this on many other planets.
We haven't seen an alien. At least I don't think we
We
have.
haven't seen a human.
We haven't seen a human. I really do. There's a part of me that just thinks it's these just machines having their own little war, that there's nobody there anymore. They wiped each other out. Would that be, how would that feel though? How would that make my tummy feel at the end? Um all in all, it's like an epic tale of the resistance working with the Yorha, the androids, sort of sacrificing themselves, going
Yeah.
down to
I mean,
end this
it's like
thing.
it's also, to draw another comparison or contemporary comparison, it's Rogue One. It's we need to get the Death Star plans and like by any means possible, and then we need to get them off the planet. They need to destroy that server by any means possible, and it's just, you hate to see the brutality that kind of ensues, but it's like, yeah, that's like this is what happens in war. This is the
And
one of the points that the show's trying to drive home.
and I do really like how at the end they're kind of, I think they were going back to that area, right? 2B and Lily were just walking through that area where all the robots were just stopped because
Yep,
of the
because of the
server
server.
shutting down.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, that's crazy. Really like this episode. Really interesting stuff in this one. Episode 7, questionable actions. What happens in episode 7?
Episode 7, Adam suggests that Eve read a book just as they depart from the table. 9S grows increasingly suspicious of Command as he feels his questions are being dodged. 9S and 2B stumble across Pascal, who asks them for assistance in finding the little sister of a machine life form that they met before. Pascal and 9S challenge each other on what it means to have a heart, just as they discover the sister's bow outside of a castle. The castle appears to be empty as they discover data drives holding the history of the kingdom that they are currently in. Pascal and 9S share a moment of humility with each other as they find the little sister showing the machine life form that saved her and announcing their intent to marry each other. They are asked to say, 2B and 9S are asked to save the little king in the throne room. They enter and are met with a Yorha unit that destroys the little king and leaves a message. Command is the one that betrayed before running off.
Oh, new character, kind of,
Kind of.
maybe. At the beginning of this episode, there is something weird going on, and I don't know the answer, but I want to know your perspective. There's a lot of chatter with Operator 60 and their operators throughout the show, but the operator, 2B's handler, sort of, 60 is kind of emotional and wants 2B to wear a flower in their hair, and it comes back up later. But even with the operator talking and 9S's operator, like they're showing a lot of emotion to their people, and like they later say that they want to go to down to earth at one point, they want to do this, they want to look at the plant life and all this stuff. Like what? It just has me
Yeah,
questioning
it's
everything. Like they spent too much time on it to be nothing.
you feel like it's spending a lot of time on it, and then 9S asks his question, which gets dodged, and then the show it feels like the show tries to play it off with 2B just kind of like equivalizing the unnecessity of somebody suggesting that a flower go in their hair and the insistence of 9S questioning, orders. So like in that moment, like I'm like, oh, that's why they did that, because they wanted to give 2B a way to show how 9S is being so ridiculous, as this operator that's suggesting a flower go in
Mhm.
her hair. But like, like you say, it's just, it goes against kind of the standard, or what we've been, what we've grown to expect out of these communication calls, which is, some sort of sense of professionalism to come out of their interactions. And
Mhm.
it takes it to a very casual point,
Yeah.
and it continues to kind of like push that more and more, like you said, as it gets revisited later. So
L
I don't know what's going on, but
yeah, like, they're
it's
in like,
something's going on.
we see the room where the operators are, and that's usually where the commander is, so that's
Mhm.
why it's always, like, super professional, because you would assume the commander is listening to all of them, that she's just there and, like, making sure everybody's in the right path going on the mission, but it just gets super casual, like you said, and it's just like, "What's happening?" We get sort of like this side mission kind of where the little sister is gone. We met this little sister before. So one of the robots that we've seen in the past, and they have to go to the kingdom to go look for the little sister because she was looking for parts for her sister. And it's like, okay, cool, whatever. Let's do it. Pascal has a new body, and androids can change parts. Uh, Androids can't change parts like Pascal, so
Yes.
they do make that point known that Pascal is very different than the androids that are there to be a 9S. They can't change just as much as he can. But then that whole conversation about like
Yeah.
what part of you is you, what part of you can be changed because it'll be something else if you
How
don't.
much of you can you change until you're something different?
That
And
also
Pascal comes
goes,
back around and say, like, the heart. Like, what? And they're like, the
yeah.
question, as long as you don't change the heart, how can, or you're gonna, remain the same. And then it's like, oh, well, humanoid or robot life forms don't have hearts. Oh, so then androids don't have hearts either. And it's like, again, I feel like it's almost like that might be the point of the earlier, the operator becoming so casual, is that like all these interactions between them and 2B has them like creating a sense of like closeness, because
Mhm.
they are in constant communication with each other. And so, one growing wants and desires, this operator takes an interest in botany and plants, and is just like, if you find this flower, like, I'd love if you could just send me a shot of this flower. And yeah, it's like, does that operator have a heart or not? Because it's, they say again, if it walks and talks and thinks and acts like a human.
So then what makes them from not uh yeah, I mean, what makes it not possible to accept that all the robots on Earth are just as much human as they are as the Yorhas? So it's like
Again, it's just
if
it comes down to lacking that one element, which us as humans interacting with this show, experiencing it as a piece of media, we see the androids who are presented as humans, and we can have a sense of likeness towards them, even though we know they aren't actually humans. But you see those robots, the humanoid life forms, and the way that they're acting and trying to, like, not trying to, but saying human like phrases and having human like tendencies. And your brain has like a disconnect there. But is it really truly like that different?
I don't know how much does AI have to change to meet for me to accept it to be human? I don't know. I don't know where that line is for me. I know it's coming probably. Hello, Claire. Look, I had nothing to do. It was Friday night. It's not like I came here for your podcast or anything. Baka. Hello,
Okay.
Claire. Appreciate you coming by. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The Forest Kingdom. We go into the Forest Kingdom and castle where the king resides. Someone took all the robots down. I really like all these like little pauses they do on the areas because that's exactly what they do in the video games. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I remember this. I remember this area. I killed all these people.
Any good game with good set pieces and distinct areas, specifically JRPGs, they
Mhm.
always give that like those pan overs of a new area with the area music playing, and it's
Mhm.
just like, I want to go to there.
Little name. And I'm like, yes, there it is.
Little name. We've gotten a new little name.
Little name, whatever it is. Yes, I love it.
Or a Legend of Zelda game. We're walking into a new dungeon. It's like the
Mhm.
Forest Temple. It's like,
Yep, pops up. Let's do it. Unfortunately, though, the king died. So we
the
get a
king.
flashback to the king announcing this is their land with yellow eyes robots. The king dies. We have a child robot to be the next king. The intruder during birth of the new king at the festival ends up stabbing him. Is that where he? Yeah, she stabs him, right? A2 stabs him. Pascal um, saves 9S when we come back to it. We find the little sister. Little sister loves a new robot, and they're gonna get married. So we have more emotions here from these robots.
Mhm.
More emotions. Love. I don't know. Why do they want to get married? Where did they get that idea from? I don't know, man.
Also to point out that the first thing that king says in the first flashback 256 years prior is, I think, therefore I have resolved, which isn't one to one, but it's so close to the phrase I think therefore I am, cogito ergo sum, which has the meaning of the, like, the act of thinking is proof that I exist as a being, which is used in the the story, why am I with the AI that takes over the world.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting the name of it right now. I thought I could just remember it and then I forget it.
it's good. You got pretty far there. So that coupled with Lily having dreams and things, like there are so many like weird things that have you questioning, and where does humanity begin or beingness begin or end, because they're not supposed to dream, but Lily does and has memory of the things.
I have no mouth and I must scream. That was the name of the work I was.
Oh, okay. Nice.
That story is about a supercomputer that, like, dissolves all world tensions, but then takes over all of the world's, like, ammunitions and creates the apocalypse and keeps 4 human beings alive to torture them for the rest of eternity.
Huh?
It's a good one. Sorry.
Dang. No,
Anyways,
that's good. That's cool. Um, that's what the king says.
he
I
thinks I think therefore I have resolved, which is very close to I think therefore I am, and I can't help but think that that's,
Yeah.
we're in the space of talking about AI and the degradation of humans in the presence of what could be the next evolution of not humans, but the next evolution of
Of beings,
beings. Yeah.
of
um
higher intelligence beings.
exactly. So in
We
the
get
space, had to mention it.
Yeah, definitely. We get the new android that slays the little king, and we have a little bit of a fight. Find out her name is A2. She destroyed, or the information that the Yorha robots give is that A2 is an enemy. She destroyed multiple androids, but A2 instantly says at the end, says, Command is the one who betrayed them. Command is the one that betrayed. So sort of
Because they're
ominous.
marked as like a deserter.
Yeah, because
And
they're the
it's like,
ones.
bro, you sent me on a suicide mission. How could I have deserted?
But that's what Command wants, to go down with the ship, to be another robot. But like, I don't get why they would want that, to just use up your resources like that. Like, why are they constantly sending these newer and newer robots into impossible situations, unless the two situations that we talked about, either their backs against the wall and we're almost done, like this is it, like this, we ain't got no more, or two, I don't know. Or do they know? Or two, they know that these robots on Earth are getting transitioned into Yorha, so they're like, we have a bunch, whatever, who cares? I think it could be one of the two.
It rattled, my brain is like absolutely rattled right now. Just with like
What is it?
real
I
world
don't.
anecdotes and things along that line.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well,
But it's
let's.
it's very true where it's just like, yeah, why would you use resources like that, expend resources like that if you consider them just a resource? And it's a good question. Maybe the ends justify the means in their eyes in
Maybe.
this grand scheme, in this perspective, grandiose nature that they have, being the ones that are giving the orders from high up,
True,
just looking down at everything else like it's little ants,
because
little pieces on
Command
a chessboard.
did have in their plan Adam and Eve happening. So Command did have the idea that this would happen and this is playing out how it should, for the little robots to be as oppressed as they are, for all of this to happen enough to where Adam and Eve come out and they're going to be something. It's really interesting. Episode 8, Aji wo Kuta. What happens in episode 8?
2B and 9S question the resistance on their run-in with the rogue Yorha unit. Lily feigns ignorance, and the twins suggest speaking to Jackass in the flooded city. 9S questions if this is what a peaceful world might look like out in the flooded city, and the both of them take a moment to enjoy stepping into the water, removing their blindfolds, and seeing the world without it for probably the first time. They find a flower and share the find with one of the operators before splitting up and continuing their search. 2B finds Jackass, who had been fishing, and calls for 9S, who can't be signaled due to a scramble, and 9S finds themselves face to face with Adam, just as Eve realizes that they can't find Adam's signal.
Oh no.
Where's Big Bro?
Clary
Where's
don't know what that.
Oni-chan? Kuto Igi. I'm not gonna finish that actually. I just want to.
Did you look up the episode 8 meaning at all? I don't know if it's real words or what that
Meaning?
means. Yeah, Aji wo Kuta.
That was the name of the title. Sorry.
I think therefore booba. Okay, I accept it. Yeah, what does here? I'll look it up. What does Aji wo Kuta mean? There it is. The phrase is both about the physical action or consuming the fish and the emotional experience of tasting the flavor.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not the mackerel that Jackass caught.
Yeah, if I would have looked that up before, I would have known this episode was about a fish, and they were right. So
They were right.
Not that easy to translate miniskirt into Latin. Who knew? Yeah, who knew that they didn't have that word? Yeah, for sure.
Who would have known?
Miniskirt. A2, we know. Dangerous android. New mission from Command to pursue A2. And we find out that their name is Attacker number 2. That's why they're named for. Lily has sort of a reaction when they bring it up to her that she thinks this is the old 2B model that she used to be with, and from the flashback we see. We go to the flooded city looking for Jackass. This was an interesting scene the whole time. It was a little slow, but it was them removing their visors, figuring it out. I don't know, hopefully figuring out that there's more than just what they're doing, just more than the missions that they're going on, and that there's can be humanity.
Yeah.
Or hopefully they feel humanity.
And that's where I think it's kind of going for when 9S talks about, like, hey, we're modeled after humans, and humans used to just take time to enjoy these little things, basically, is what he's saying. So, sometimes it's just about the little things.
Like them finding a flower, showing 6-0, 2B pinning the flower in her boobs, and finding Jackass.
Bro, they gave us just cleavage shot out of nowhere, and I was like, what are we doing here?
It just kind of lingered.
Dude, also, we forgot to talk about it. The end sequences, one of them was just like, what?
No, two of them.
Two of them were very like, what are we doing here? What's going on? Why do I feel like I've walked into a fanfic?
Hey, bro, chill. Just make sure nobody walks into the room as you're watching it. Because yes, it was 9S and 2B, I think, just like showing like art,
It
risque
was
art
like
of them.
it was very leggy.
It was very much like this art is their body pillow picture. And they also had Adam and Eve, I think, in this one.
Yeah.
At the end of episode 4, it was like Adam and Eve doing the ooh, look at their shirts that are open just a little bit to see their abs. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, man. This is what it is. Um, we found Jackass who's fishing. We find out some information about the mackerel fish. Like, I don't. What I said was this is Chekhov's mackerel here because like this has to be something. The mackerel
Yeah, this is
fish.
Chekhov's that mackerel for sure. Like Jackass is literally saying that, oh, just something associated with the mackerel can cause it to have an android to completely seize up and shut down. That is going to be the downfall of Adam and Eve right there. That mackerel in her
in
hand.
and in the little marionette sort of style
Yeah,
ending, I think it was Adam reading a book about a mackerel or about a fish or something. And I'm like, they brought it up a couple times. This isn't a coincidence. What's happening? So, the lunar tier flower that 60 said that she really wanted to see, she also says, or I think it's her, Jackass says that this flower is able to grant wishes.
Jackass brings that up.
Jackass brings it up. The androids, they report to the 60 and then Android 210. They sort of had interests and hobbies, which goes along with what we've been talking about this whole time. Like they talk about how they have other things that they are into other than their job. And it's like,
Yeah.
what is that?
One of them asked 9S to like take casual pictures of things they might come across, and he's like, got it, mission like acquired. And she's like, no,
Yeah.
this isn't a mission, this is a hobby. Like, I'm just collecting
Like,
data because
what?
I want to. And he's like,
Yeah.
that sounds boring. But sure.
Yeah, and during that bit, 9S gains access to the video camera of the commander, and the commander sort of talking to the higher ups again. Just commander, do you think it's that she cares about the Yorhas? Because see, we see her sort of apprehensive, not really
Yeah,
wanting to go
I
with
think
what her
again it's
higher ups
like
are doing.
like I can only assume the commander is an android, also an android, so I feel as though it's like as you grow to know like your comrades, your fellow androids, there's probably a sense of like a closeness that one gets, and having to send those very same androids on missions that might put them in immediate deadly peril, not being able to relay to them all the information that might save them and have them coming back from that mission with a higher likelihood, it probably eats away at her. And we don't get I don't remember ever really getting anything out of the commander in the game, but again, didn't play it that far, so not surprised if
Not
we
any of
do.
that.
But it really kind of puts the commander in like this nuanced spot of confliction for sure.
Yeah, and I dig the character. Like I dig what we're doing with this, where it is a question of why are we doing this? And she's starting to realize and trying to get on the it's very similar to some character stuff that's happening in Severance. Severance season 2 is happening. It's insane. I'm in
Everyone keeps
theories.
telling me to watch it. The more people that tell me to watch it, the more
I
I'm just like,
know.
I'll get to it when
I
I get
know.
to it.
I feel that, but it is really good. You should watch it. Um so we get 9S discovering a room with paintings of him and 2B. What is that? Who is
Yeah,
that?
that's that. I mean, I would assume that that's Adam taking like he's reading books and
Being
every
artistic?
being artistic. We see him go from like wanting them to wear underwear to wanting them to wear full outfits in the course of like one
Okay.
jump, and he's very well articulated and seems to be taking in information at such a incredible rate that, yeah, I'm not
Mhm.
surprised if he had just like one day when he decided to step away from the table, he was like, I'm gonna find somewhere and start painting. They happen to wander in, or maybe he followed them and have been keeping tabs on them, but we don't really know yet.
They did something in this scene that was like really cool. I don't know if you noticed it. Um, where 9S is walking down the hallway and then it goes sideways sort of, and it goes to like a cinematic
I
view,
did
like it
notice that.
fades.
Yeah.
It's
Even though
really crazy.
it didn't go completely letterbox, like you could still see some of the, animation through the frame. So the frame went like semi-transparent, almost opaque, but it
Yeah,
was never completely
like
opaque, which I
85,
thought was
90%.
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is really odd. I was like,
They're
this is
trying to
cool.
draw you in.
Draw you, yeah, literally drawing into the hallway, and it does that, and it's like, oh, this is cool. Cool cinematic sort of thing. Cinema. Then when Eve can't feel his older brother in whatever network, I don't off of the network, whatever that is. So Adam is most likely
Womp.
there with 9S. What's happening? What are your final predictions before we get to the end of our run for this anime? What do you think we're going to discover by the end? Because this was separated into two parts. So we're going to figure something out for it to leave on a cliffhanger. What do you got?
I have so few thoughts on what is ultimately like the answer is, because there have been so many like moral quandaries posed, so many heavily thematic, I can't even word right now, themes that are just very heavy have been thrown into the mix with all of this beautiful animation, these crazy set pieces that are just so crazy to look at. It's the show's got a lot packed into it. It's a lot denser than I can say that I assumed it was going to be. And that's where I feel like I wasn't ready to think about like where the train's going. I was just
Yeah,
ready to hop on the train. But now it's like there's all these directions that it could go, that every time I like shoot out in one direction, it's just like that thought leads to like two more ideas. It again, going off of what I was saying earlier, it could ultimately be that like the aliens have been in control the entire time, and all the humans are dead. You've brought up the notion that it might just be like AI in the bunker, and there are like the humans aren't even there. We haven't even seen aliens, so why should we even believe that? Everything is supposed to be lies and deception. That's the first thing that the show tells us. So should I even be taking anything that the show's giving to me at face value?
it could just be like a gods thing. Like this
Could be
is
this is
the
just 9S's dying dream after that first encounter that we had, like
this is the marble from what is it called?
from Men in Black.
Men in Black.
Yes.
It's at the last episode. It's gonna
Orion's
zoom
belt.
out. Orion's belt, just zoom out where it was just a marble, and the alien was the really big one.
And
I
that's
don't know.
where I was like kind of poking at that, like it could get into like Lovecraft type territory, where it's like
It could
there
still.
are beings that are so much more comprehensive that like we can't even understand and fathom them, and just the machinations
That
of those beings might be what's at play here.
this is just a game of them putting things together into their potion and be like, let's see what happens. And I would totally believe that. Like it sucks that it leaves it open for that. Like it could be anything tangible that we can think of, that there's humans, there's no humans, there are aliens, there's not aliens, but there's also enough evidence here to be like, this is a computer program in an alien high school and they're running a simulation. And I'd be like, okay, it sucks that it's so open to that, anything we can think of. So it's kind of crazy. I don't know the answer, and I don't think Matt knows the answer either. But by the end of next week,
My brain hurts.
my brain, we know that our brains hurt.
I know
So next week,
nothing. No thoughts. Head empty.
next week we're gonna rank the anime. We're gonna decide what it goes up on and how we feel about it. So next week we're gonna pick a brand new anime. We're gonna give our final thoughts of Near Automata. and we'll go on our way. Hopefully, it's not like a huge. Hopefully, we get some answers. I do want one answer at least. Can I
It's
get
just
one?
a huge ass cliffhanger into the second part.
Imagine.
I'm gonna commit.
Matt, when you're not becoming an automata, where can they find you on the internet?
You can follow me on my Instagram or on Threads at it's Matt_Galley, or you can follow me on my YouTube at Matt_Galley. Jules, when we're not here thinking about the I think, therefore I am is the friends we made along the way, where can the people find you?
At Jules the Human, at JULES the Human on all social media, at Jules the Human on Threads, Insta, wherever you get your content. I've been on Threads talking about comic books. Been reading a lot of comic books. You can download this podcast on Spotify if that's your podcasting place of choice. Spotify, just look up the Jules and Anime Hour. You can follow the Anime Podcast YouTube channel. It's the link in the description here if you're watching on YouTube, but you can take us everywhere, anywhere you find podcasts. Claire says, I'm sure there will be a huge amount of ass and nothing else. You know, when you think about when I didn't know anything about it and I just saw like the 2B model and like the cosplays, I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to get into that. And then now we're here and it's like, oh, there's a lot. There's not a lot. There's not as much butt as we thought, but there's a lot of butt for our brains. That makes sense. There's a lot of stuff for our brains to munch on. Next week we're picking a brand new anime. Next week we're picking a brand new anime. Come back and see where we rank NIER Automata. Watch episode 9 through 12. I don't think you could really pull off that outfit, Jules. No, I'm going to just to show you. Episode 9 through 12. Next week we're going to rank the anime. The end of NIER Automata. We're going to pick a brand new one. So we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.